Hello, you're very welcome to the first video in DigComp Edu Strand 3.4 Self-Regulated Learning. This video will look at what is self-regulated learning and why it's important in today's age. In particular, we will look at the meaning of self-regulated learning. We will discuss why self-regulated learning is important in a digital context. We'll also explore the factors that might influence self-regulated learning and also critique the role of the educator in a self-regulated learning environment. There's several definitions of self-regulated learning. Self-regulated learning is also termed as learner agency or student's agency. It's where a person takes responsibility for their own learning. They choose their own goals, determining where to focus their attention, interest, and effort. In attention, self-regulated learners evaluate their own learning and identify further goals to enhance themselves. Self-regulated learning supports students with the whole concept of learner agency. Learner agency is where students are provided with opportunities to make decisions about their learners. Lastly, digital agency is also an emerging tool. This refers to the autonomy students have in relation to choosing the tools they can use for their learning. DigComp Edu defines self-regulated learning as a competency that encourages teachers to use digital technologies to support learners' self-regulated learning, i.e. to enable learners to plan, monitor and reflect on their own learning, provide evidence of progress, share insights and come up with creative solutions. This definition aligns to definitions of self-regulated learning that we previously explored, as well as elements of learner agency. Digital agency allows students to choose which tools they use to regulate their own learning. To differentiate between the concept of self-regulated learning and agency, we will look at the marathon analogy. Agency and self-regulated learning are different in that agency is focused on the student's ability to decide on a learning goal and act, whereas self-regulated learning is the internal process by which they achieve that goal. If a person wishes to run a marathon, agency will be the person's ability to identify which marathon to run, plan the trip, and the associated training schedule, presuming they're free of any constraints or they can navigate these constraints. So, learner agency is to do with choice and the ability to choose. Self-regulated learning is the person's ability to monitor their progress, decide what speed they are running, evaluate when they're tired and the need to slow down, and motivate themselves when they feel like giving up. Self-regulated learning is a way by which a student achieves their overall agency. Within a learning environment, there are a number of constraints and factors that may influence agency and limit the person's ability to decide or make decisions. The figure in this diagram illustrates a theory of the factors influencing student agency. This was developed by Brandt in 2024. As you can see, often agency can be limited by the school environment. The lack of social and emotional support to enable students to make decisions. Within pedagogical approaches, we may automatically make decisions for our students rather than providing them with choice. In addition, accessing high-quality instructional resources to allow them to engage with tasks or instructions or teaching and learning materials where they feel they might need support. Also, having a school culture and climate that advocates learner agency and encourages students to take ownership of their own learning is really, really important. So the school environment can significantly impact learner agency. In addition, a person's internal personal factors may influence their ability to be agents of their own learning. Students' ability to process mentally, in particular how to make decisions, may vary between students. Executive functioning, the student's ability to plan and organise, may vary between students. Also, the student's ability to notice where they need support or help and self-regulate it. Also, the basic core academic knowledge and skills can affect self-regulated learning. To engage in self-regulated learning, often students need a level of basic skills and knowledge. This allows them to make decisions more accurately, evaluate knowledge from the basis that they already have. These inputs influence mediating factors such as self-efficacy and motivation. If students are provided with the opportunities to make decisions and supported to do this, it makes them more confident at self-regulated learning and motivates them to engage in the process. The outputs of these two inputs are agency is where the students can exercise control over their own thought process. This illustrates different observed behaviours such as where they establish a goal, they plan a course of action, they monitor progress, and they can analyse their own performance and evaluate where they need to go next. It's important to consider the overarching environment when designing self-regulated learning environments. Self-regulated learning is critical in today's learning environment and society for a number of reasons. Firstly, technology in society is changing at a more rapid pace than ever. Learners need to be able to take control of what and how to learn new skills. Learner agency provides them with the ability and skills to identify learning goals, to identify the skills they need to address changes in the environment. In addition, to engage students in learning, they need to feel they have choice and free will. By providing choice and free will, it increases motivation, academic performance, and enhances learning outcome. Evidence has shown learner agency supports student engagement within the learning environment. This is particularly critical where we have high rates of school refusal and students who struggle to attend school. In addition, there's an increasing focus in our educational environments on personalised learning. Increasingly, technology is making decisions about what and how students learn, or decide what information they're provided with through algorithms on social media. Developing learner agency and self-regulated learning helps students to identify what their needs are in terms of information and learning, and also be less likely to influenced by misinformation or information that doesn't meet their needs. Agency can also support learners to exercise their ability morally, socially and creatively, particularly in an environment, and facilitate this holistic development of children. There are a number of advantages to self-regulated learning, particularly in the context of digital education. There is evidence to suggest that students who are self-regulated learners are better able to critically use technologies to enhance their learning. They also perform better in digital learning environments as they become more independent, and this allows them to set goals, plan strategies, and monitor their own progress. Self-regulated learning views real-world problem solving and difficult problems more favourably, as they focus on process and product outcomes. As you will see later, self-regulated learning involves breaking learning tasks down into specific processes, which the students are responsible for evaluating their progress in. This allows problem solving and the development of problem solving skills. Lastly, agency is a 21st century skill. Due to the rapid pace of change, 21st century society demands new skills, in particular the ability to adapt, problem solve, self-appraise and collaborate across disciplines and geographical locations. Self-regulated learning facilitates this 21st century skills gap. These skills required in the 21st century are often in stark contrast to those promoted in traditional education systems. Such systems are largely siloed and content-focused and teach individuals discipline-specific skills pathways. Student success today is largely dependent on the ability of students to demonstrate prescribed learning outcomes for which they are awarded grades. To bridge the gap between traditional education and the needs of a 21st century society, in which students can be adapted to change and make informed choices about their own learning and facilitate agency, requires a shift in teaching and learning. Agency is critical to bridge this gap. So what is the educator's role in a self-regulated learning environment? As we will look at the content in this module, you see the educator's role changes quite significantly as learners become more independent. It's important that educators provide a safe space to encourage students to take an active role in their learning. Often students don't perceive their role as being active learners and prefer to passively listen to information. Encouraging students to preempt problems and self-assess their skills level rather than relying on the teacher is critical. It's important that we support students to identify their own learning outcomes and adapt their skills. In addition, it's important that us as educators must model agency. By identifying improvements in our teaching, being open with our students, and talking to our students about how we might take risks to allow us to be vulnerable, empathetic, and real people with our students. It's important that we encourage students to embrace their agency, to inspire and empower them. This involves understanding their challenges and strengths and identifying strategies to support their learners. To do this, we need to foster self-determined learners who can monitor their progress and make connections with prior learning. However, it's important to note this doesn't happen overnight, and it's important to build toward self-regulated learning in an age-appropriate way. In summary, it's important to note that self-regulated learners take responsibility for planning, monitoring and reflecting on their own learning. Self-regulated learning is important today due to the changing nature of society. There are a number of factors that may influence self-regulated learning, particularly the school environment and the rules they may impose on students, personal factors and the student's ability, and there's a number of different mediating factors, particularly educators' approaches and the capacity of educators to provide decisions to their students. It's important that we as educators model agency and encourage students to take more ownership of their own learning.